Hi, I'm Natalia. I'm responsible here for the biometric algorithms for the Uniform Biometric System, and I'll be talking about testing some of such vitality detection algorithms. And in the course, I will be using some slang names. We call it liveness. Well, in theory, I assume that you may have heard about it. So let's talk about Uniform Biometric System. It's a platform which provides these services to the people in the remote channel by biometrics. The Uniform System of Biometric Analysis was recognized as the standard, and it's just the same as using the passport of your identity. You give out your sample of the voice and your face image, and the storage of such biometric data, well, it's provided by crypto services. We have a few services already that you can use by using Uniform Biometric System, financial services, for instance, or electronic SIM card, and get mobile services. And you can use it if you're a student, and 200 students, for example, proved their identity when passing their tests, going through exams with this biometric uniform system. Speaking in terms of the biometric systems, any biometric system can be imagined in general. It would be made of blocks with the general functionality, and the actual attack is possible from anywhere. But we are going to speak only about attacks on sensor, like your mobile phone camera attack. That's where biometric samples take this information from. And other attacks are also important, but they go outside the scope, and they are resolved by other protection means. So why do we need liveness? The use of this liveness service includes two components. First of all, recognition and the liveness itself. And if the recognition answers the question, yes, me is me, but liveness is that I'm a live person in front of the camera while getting my biometric data. Many experts implement such systems, and those will agree with me that without liveness, the actual recognition poses a threat, because if you not confirm the eligibility of the data that we receive in a single channel, further recognition cannot be considered to be legit. We have multiple liveness vendors in the market. There are popular players that are on top of their game, and more local ones, smaller companies. And it seems like that Uniform Biometric System is an open system. Anyone, any developer can contact it, and we do receive a lot of materials, commercial materials that are very superficial, I would say. And the vendors would always write that they work with the face image, with any overlapping factor. They work up to a big degree of the deviation from the frontal position. They explain that they have high precision, and for instance, they are showing that false positive possibility is 0%. Well, normally such materials are neglected when doing the analysis for two reasons. First of all, if we see such materials from two different companies, they don't show what this sample was made up with. So the data in the test sample cannot be matching with our target case. There is such a possibility, and it is quite possible that the algorithm which was tested and received such data will show different characteristics in operations, and we cannot compare such things with one another, because each and every vendor is testing it on its own selection. Maybe it's using the open source, and some of it may go to testing, some of it may go elsewhere. So as a fact, we are not getting a very objective evaluation, which we will take to make sure that we select the algorithm for uniform biometric system. In Russia, we have a series of standards which sets liveness algorithms and the methods it implements it with, and also the tests. And in the first part, types of tools are stipulated, and types of tools that can be used when attacking any biometric system. But these standards have a problem. They don't stipulate exact attack tools for each and every situation. So the tools used for the attack by an attacker is always open. It's up to their choice. And any test in liveness is not complete, therefore. But the market has always had a need to test these solutions and to make them all evaluated and evaluated in a coherent and clear way to all of the market players. So they decided to go away from classic passwords, and they wanted to standardize other authentication methods. They decided to split the possible attack tools into three levels. The simplest one that I can implement, anyone can do, and any person without any special preparation, without special equipment. For us, for many users, it may be a very clear model. So level one is printed images or images that you can show on screen of your mobile phone. Level two, paper masks. So if you cut away lips and eye sockets just to cheat on the active liveness algorithms or show a video on the screen. That's level two. And 3D masks and deepfakes are the most complicated ones. Those of you who would like to join in, imagine that there is a biometric recognition system and 6 images have been produced to it. Any assumption which is the original and what are fakes? Okay, you're absolutely right, and that's what this liveness principle is all about. From all of the biometric solutions, you need to find the one which belongs to a live person, and find the fake one. I would also take a look at this one and the one in the middle, in the upper row. Seems like that's a sepia of a real authentic photograph. And you get the ones with artifacts, and the 2 lower ones with the masks For me as a human, it's obvious, and for you obviously, that these are just paper masks shown to the camera. As for deepfakes, deepfake is the third level of attack. You had possibly been witnessing this hype wave when it was all about saying there is no protection from deepfake. If your biometric data is stolen, for example, my data is on Instagram, and we share this information with you. Obviously, it will be broadcast on the internet. If this person had this information stolen, they will just need to say goodbye to their digital life with the using of the biometric solutions, because it will pose great danger to him or her, because by using deepfake, somebody else may intrude the system and hack it. But very often mass media writes about the absence of the protection from deepfake, and they claim that that's not an attack on a sensor, but that's instead an attack on a channel. For example, the deepfake that you're looking at was created on a simple GPU. We didn't exert ourselves at all creating it, and I don't have any special knowledge creating it. It's just a complete open source solution to create such a deepfake. I just need to separate these two cases. When a potential attacker tries to intrude the system, not anyone can do that. You just need to have some kind of minimal knowledge for that. The simplest way is just to attack a sensor. No special knowledge required here. But at the same time, artifacts do arise when you demonstrate these photographs from the screen of your device, like I showed you previously. On the previous photographs, there was a picture shown on the screen, and it did show some artifacts. So such cases are separate, and the algorithms of attacks detections work, first of all, in terms of identifying deepfakes and also trying to eradicate deepfake attempts shown to the sensor. I showed you some attack instruments, and now I'm showing you some instruments for protection. There's always a great chase, and the crooks are coming up with new attack tools, and the developers of bioalgorithms come up with different attack tools. They use at least three: multi-modality, passive and active liveness. Active liveness is used by this reply request, and preparing for a certain request is difficult and get a reply. But once they've tried, once the cheaters tried to, and they found out how this authentication is performed, they can clearly see what should be done to attack the system. Like I said, we use passive liveness algorithms. They all run in the background. They don't require any involvement from you. It's very convenient, and it gives you extra protection from the criminals, because they don't really know where there is liveness in this particular case, or at which point in time data is acquired. Or, for example, if the attackers have prepared, and through this whole process they're using this attack tool, they still don't know which exact method is used in a particular realization. From 2004 and 2018, we have been testing these algorithms. We did start with simplest biometric verification algorithm, requiring just the base of sufficient volume. We have now 7 test pads, including the one that helps us test out the complete, fully fledged system, which includes all of the tools: quality control, liveness, and the actual recognition. We ended up having it because we wanted to get valuable and true evaluation for our case. For this, we used the closed database, which is not available to the developers of the algorithms. So all of the developers of the algorithms are put in the similar conditions, and all of the tests are carried out according to GOST standard. The ones identifying this are shown on the slide. These are the numbers: 58292, GOST, and 197951, and the second GOST 58624 is the GOST about liveness and the fully fledged system solution for biometric verification. So with liveness tests, we have some issues, like, for example, statistical validity. Like I said before, the number of attack tools and the number of instruments inside these tools may be limitless, endless. It's always open, and you will never ever build the attack model for tests, even if you change, for instance, change the device on which you printed the photograph, or if you change the material from which you created the attack tool. Still, you need to test it again and have a complete test. Then, comparable results. When we test verification, some algorithm may be better and some may be worse, either in the entire range or in some parts of its range. But with liveness, it's different. It really all depends on which attack tools have been selected by you for these tests. And second of all, liveness very much depends on a specific application. So what would be your particular target case? Where are you going to use this algorithm? And number three, it's the alignment. When you come up with this test sample, you need to come up with this combination of samples to come up with some database for further technological tests. If you take your colleagues from which you have to ask for permission to work on their biometric data, if they are your neighbors, if they are close by, sitting at the same table, it's convenient. But you'll have to ask for their permissions. And they will have to send this permission to you. And they have already worked with this, and they know what can be expected. And they know how to show their face better, at which angle to the camera, and what to say best. But if you take people elsewhere, and you show them your so-called logic instructions, people from the street may not understand it for various reasons. They may just be not tech-savvy, and their example will be not aligned. There will be no alignment. They are not giving... they're not letting you to scan their fingerprints right, because they're just not putting their finger in the right position. So there may be some misalignment. Some automatic tests. Automatic tests are also important. When you have a database and you run algorithms on it, it is working because it helps to run these tests quickly. It allows to compare algorithms with one another and use the same database for this whole purpose of your study. But because there are different liveness algorithms are used, and they can use different detection methods, the single database which you've collected here, you only have just, for example, images, cannot be applied here to test the algorithms, which can also be used here, like the 3D method and the one that gets the infrared images, for instance. You will have to test this algorithm again, because there may be differences in configurations of the system, and they cannot be applied to your new case. And the last one, quality and performance. When you prepare the test bench, you have a certain pool of devices, or you have some materials from which you make your tools. For example, you have an HD image or a pool of HD images, but you don't know what quality of images potential fraudsters will be using. It may be a high-resolution image, or it may be a very blurry image from your avatar. So we cannot assume which would be the quality and what would be the quality level of the solution generated by an attacker. So liveness tests have never been complete and will never be absolutely complete. So it seems like, what's the point of running these tests then, if they're not complete? Well, first of all, the market really has a need for such biometric identification. That's number one. And number two, you need it. You just need to select attack tools that would be relevant for your case. For example, if you sell coffee for 100 rubles, the need to test the masks that are done for 70,000 and 150,000. Maybe there is no need for that. But if someone asks these masks for 170,000 rubles just to buy a coffee for face recognition, it's highly unlikely. So you just need to suit it to the real situation, make it suitable for the violation. And one final stage, how do we run these tests? All these tests are made up of 3 stages. First of all, we are testing the API. It's described in the documentation. It's provided to the vendor who would like to be the supplier of the EBS to the system. And we come up with automated tests so that the vendor can check and verify the API.
And this would reduce the length and the intensity of the trials. Second part is the performance, and we compare not only based on the quality of the engine, but also in terms of the amount of resources they consume. So for each and every engine, we dedicate the specific amount of hardware and look at the TPS on this hardware. And before we put this in production, if we are fully satisfied with the engine, then we test for resiliency and long-term performance. And the last important point is the usage characteristics, the quality that can be provided by the algorithm that you test. The crazy abbreviations here are fully described in the state standard, but if you put it in simple words, that then VOKPBP is the probability of the fact that your engine will not reply to your request. So the quality of the sample is not enough, or the format is wrong, or something else, some other reason. And two following probabilities, VOBA and VOPVP, is the chance of false positive and false negative errors, the chance with which the engine will consider the attack to be the real thing, or the vice versa. And usually we talk about this in terms of convenience and security. One of the parameters is responsible for convenience. How comfortable is it to work with this system, and what is the chance that the service will be delivered from the first experience? And with VOPA, for each attacking tool is calculated separately. So what else you should put some attention on is the test group. It should be representative for your target case in terms of the age, the sex, and the race, and also the volume. We often meet the cases with the vendors questioning the source of the base, the size of the base, and the state standard regulates the minimum probability with which you need to work for a given base. So if, for example, you have 300 people in your database, that based on the rule of 3, the minimal probability that you need to be able to define is 3 divided by 300, like 10 to the minus 2 power. And if you got lower probability, it's no longer considered correct, and then our testing stand will say that the results are not provable. So, also in terms of usage metrics, the compromised error curves defined by the standard. This graph represents one algorithm, and the 3 graphs here are 2 for specific attack tools, print and replay, and in the middle, the graph for both of those tools simultaneously. Usually, this graph is used to show the comparison between security and convenience, because it's always a compromise, and those probabilities are connected. And by reducing one, you always want the system to be as safe as possible, and you make the system less convenient, because it stops allowing the true people to go in and it will classify them as attacks. So we can use this to assess the probability of the system being convenient, somewhere between 10 to the minus 2 or 10 to the minus 1. And if we take the average, then it's higher than 10 to the minus 1. And we have this graph that for different algorithms of different providers shows the performance for all the attacking tools. To ensure that these characteristics of safety and convenience, the ideal graph would go to the left lower part of the screen. And if you see this graph, it can give you a lot of information besides just the usage metrics. So if the graph would be just, a sector, and that would mean that the base is not big enough, and the algorithm has more accuracy than your base, and you need to grow the base. Or alternatively, if you see a picture with those steps, big steps, it means that most of the entries of the database are in the center, around 0.5. And when you see those long steps, it means that the algorithm is not sensitive enough. And it means that it will reply with the liveness score as fast as it can. And the broad scope of this liveness score would contain a lot of samples. And it's important to understand that in the ends of the graphs you will always get those steps. Because you don't usually have a lot of samples there, and regardless of how big the database is, if you choose the size of the step, you can choose a bigger size of the step, then the whole graph will be full of those steps. And the last thing we get is a table that roughly looks like this. Is a usage criteria set, helps us to analyze which algorithm to choose. Besides the probability, it has the length of processing. And based on the SLA, we can decide what is the level of security required. We watch for the system to be convenient and to reduce the amount of refusals so that the probability of refusal to the real person to be qualified as an attack to be as low as possible. And we look at how fast the algorithm is. That's all from my side, and I'd like to highlight once again that OBS is an open system, and if you have any liveness or recognition system, please feel free and propose it to us for testing. If I may ask a question as an organizer. It would be genius to put this system in the shops where they sell alcohol. It's really tiring. They keep asking me for the passport. Yeah, it's a good case, really. But it's important to understand that you need some norms and regulations in this area. And the EBS usage cases are defined by the law. So unfortunately, you would need to really follow the law and change the processes. Thanks a lot. Two questions. First is when we talk about using inference on the real devices, we need to sacrifice something. Before the quanting, how much do you sacrifice the accuracy? And I think it should be used not only in the service, but also in offline systems, right? And the second question is the amount of errors. So the recognition error, how big is it? So for the first question, if I got it right, then you can skip the quality check, or what? The question is, when we do infer the model, when we apply the model on some hardware, We should probably think not in terms of floats, but in some quantum types, because it's expensive, right? Well, on EBS, I can only talk about this system. We have liveness implemented on the back. So there's no liveness algorithms on the front in the mobile app. But I know that the colleagues, the vendors, have some front solution that works on the devices, and they consume less processing power. So they work on the mobile devices. And if you come up to me after the presentation, I will send you to the vendors. Thanks. Thanks so much. And the second question, yeah, the regulations allow this as part of the biometric systems, both governmental and private and commercial. There are two laws. Currently, biometric regulation is now owned by the ministry, digital ministry, and they have issued two laws that 870 or something like that, but it defines the minimal probability with which the transaction needs to be considered successful to prove that you are you. And the same law defines the aggregated probability, 4 nines after the comma, as it's put in the law. It includes recognition and liveness. They are merged to calculate the summarized probability. And if we send something to the background, we have some special tools, some stickers that break the logic of the neural nets. Do you monitor for them? You mean the stickers that turn the face into something else? Like, we can put some area, we have some area on the picture that will not hinder the person from identifying the person. But if it's RNN, then this part will be summarized into the algorithm and then give us an OK. No, we don't. Yeah, it's called adversarial patching, right? Yeah, we did not research that. Dennis from Sberbank. I was waiting for the whole day for your presentation. It's a pleasure. Tell us about your testing sets. What are the volumes, and age, race? Yeah, I was preparing for this question for the whole day, only for this question. So we have two modalities in EBS, is the face and the voice. And regarding the face, we use the true database of at least 60,000 people, unique people. We can calculate the minimal probability. And as for the types of attacks, for the first type, faces, we have photos. And each type of the attack should have at least 30,000 of examples. And inside, there's of course some spread for different devices, different input devices, and so talking about the second level with cut-off photos, screen videos, liveness depends on that, and we use those 2D masks. There's at least 30,000 of those. And for the video, we have one frame videos, and with active liveness, there's like 30,000. For the silicon masks, it's an expensive tool, so our cases are limited, and producing a mask with a cost of 70,000 makes no sense. We do employ a team. We don't gather our data ourselves. And when we create a specification for data gathering, it includes the sexes distribution, and it's from 40 to 60%. And we have requirements for race distribution, whether related to the case or the nationality, and age-wise, depending on the case. The system can be used starting from 16 and up to any age.
Ну, в общем, в равных долях 25% там делится на 4, возраст делится на 4 диапазона.
So we have 4 ranges, right? Yeah, is it based on the...
как раз-таки альянса ФИДО, а в ГОСТе я, к сожалению, не видела такого распределения.
Подскажите еще, пожалуйста, активного лайфнесса, я так понимаю, у вас нет?
Есть.
Есть.
Да.
Do you have active liveness? Do you test? Do you do scenario testing? When we get the database, even it's not received from the air. We usually produce the case that produces the base, and we use it to prove and check the algorithm there. We use the active liveness. We've gathered a base. For a specific case, we've created relevant tools pool, and with the active liveness being multimodal, it was a very hard case for the testing. It includes attacking the face, the voice, and the attacking on both. Thank you.
Добрый день, да, не знаю, как лучше повернуться к Наташе или к Заву. Давайте Наташа повернусь. Наташа, большое спасибо за доклад.
Hi, colleagues. Thanks for the presentation. Andrew from Sberbank. We saw a lot of graphs. Did you consider disassembling the solutions and maybe getting some scores with some fusion function to improve the quality? Thanks, Andrew. We had in EBS the ability to merge the solutions. It's even defined by the law. defines the minimal probabilities that need to be provided by the algorithm. And this law says that we need to use at least 2 liveness algorithms. So if we only use the face, then at least 2 different algorithms used together, merging the decision of 2 algorithms. And the final decision should use both. Alexander from BI Solutions. I have a question about deepfakes, because we talked a lot about it. Should I be afraid that someone receives, for example, an access to the state system, state service system, using deepfake? Well, currently, as far as I know, state services are not provided using biometry.
Конкретно госуслугам я не могу ответить на этот вопрос. Да.
Some other services? Well, yeah, I talked about it before. And you need to understand that we have mobile applications for putting your face in some video or taking my face and putting it into another video. But you need to understand that any potential malicious actor, the amount of possibilities to attack the biometric system would need some knowledge. I don't know how do I break the channel to put this deepfake into a biometric system. And when the media says that we need to be afraid of deepfakes, yes, they become more accessible, but the media usually talks about, putting the deepfakes into the channel. But for me and for most of the ordinary users, they don't have the skills to put the deepfake into the channel. So the only way of attacking is through the camera, which will create some artifacts, if we talk about active liveness, and they will need to prepare the request pool that are implemented in the system. So with the EBS, the time to produce the example is very much limited. So liveness algorithms will defend from this attack, right? Well, yeah, they should. Many talk about deepfakes, putting deepfakes in by putting videos somewhere. But the deepfake video is generated using the source material. Audio, video, photos, and if you have those audio, video, and photo in the channel, then why would you need a deepfake? Well, it depends, but if we talk about the biometric system, I will support Andrew. You can have enough data. And why would you then wish to create that deepfake? And in EBS you can provide some other materials, but I will support Andrew. Any other questions? Maxim from Rostelecom Solar. Natalia, hi. I'm far from biometry, but I like the idea that you highlighted the fact that the difficulty of the attack depends on the value for the attacker. And if we define the EBS scope as small in the beginning, it's getting bigger and bigger. So how do we reconsider the tools used, because we can use more and more EBS, and in the end, the biometry will be used everywhere. So, do we do anything? What are the vectors? Protection, improving the recognition quality, and stuff like that. Well, the most trivial thing we do is not done to create new cases. We update the neural nets. Usually the vendors just deploy 4 new neural nets with a year with new improved qualities, and we test. We test the neural nets. We remove the old ones. They develop at a very fast pace. So when we just started the EBS, what was there is no longer makes sense. We constantly update the neural nets. And second, in the new usage case, we usually create new threat model that includes the analysis of potential threats for each and every case.
Ну, сейчас это вот 4 девятки, да, для любого кейса, но необходимо понимать, что
4 nines for each and every case is the current goal, and you can set up different thresholds for a more critical transaction, for example, to some bank transfers.
На этот кейс стоит закрутить просто выше вероятности
You can just improve the probability
тех движков, которые могут ее обеспечить. Если у вас какой-то менее
for the
критичный
engines that can provide.
то здесь можно
And if
снизить требования
the sensitivity is lower, then you can lower the requirements for accuracy. Thank you. So you have voice, you have video, anything else? We have thought of new modalities, but the reason we chose the face and the voice is that for us and for most of the people, those modalities are the most convenient. We keep recording our voice and making photos.
приемлемости для конечного пользователя эти две модальности наиболее.
So in terms of acceptability for the user, those modalities are the best. And second is that those modalities don't need any extra devices when we were considering what we use, what types of devices we use the EBS for. The need to have new devices and new sensors is important. So blood vessels in the hand are a very good modality. It's very hard to actually fake or the eye structure. But they cannot be just scanned by a smartphone. So we'll wait for the Russian smartphones to appear that will be able to use those modalities. Simon from Sovcombank. Speaking about the voice, as far as I remember, in EBS, you need to press a number of keys. But I saw the research that says that to make a footprint of the voice, you need at least 40 seconds, and to to identify at least 6. You mean that for high probability you need at least 40 seconds? We're not talking about the attacks, we are talking about the... A good question. So the vendors keep running those researches. We even visited some of them to their research centers. And they build those usage metrics in this way for different data sets, differing by the length and cross-channel accuracy. And as far as I know, currently vendors say that the length of the speech without pauses is about 7 seconds. Is it the fingerprint or the verification? The sample for us is usually 30 numbers, which is we use to ensure that the length of the speech is high. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time for the questions, and you will just talk to Natalia later. I like the solar question. Do you like the black or the blue one? I'm afraid I will, hit someone in the face. I'm not very good at this. And I like the question from the first guy asking the 2 questions that I never understood. So with that, we are done for today. Please feel free to come tomorrow.